So, welcome to Bunny's Designs. It's very slow, is this? I'm not sure if it's recording yet. I'm not sure what's happening. Bear with me. Welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is a live stream with live people. Impromptu Sunday. A little trip to the a little trip to the range, and I found this Escape to Oz book, and it was smaller than the usual ones. I think it's only 6x6. And ruler. I've had one in my hand a moment ago. It's gone. But I think it's about 6x6 or 5x5. It's not very big, and it's like an ivory paper. It's cream paper and it's quite thick. So I thought about gouache, but then I thought I'd have a play with my Derwent art bars, since I had such a pain to get the full set. So I've scratched a bit of colour with the crayon, and I've used number 16, I think, and they're very buttery. They just kind of soft and disintegrate almost. So you can scratch them like this, or you can use your wet brush and use them like this. So I'll zoom in and then we'll see what happens with this. Now I haven't used them on this paper, so whoopsie. So it's a practice. So if you've got any questions, pop them in caps. Whoopsie. Let's see if I can just, and if I'm going to have to shoot my husband. Shut up. It's my wedding anniversary tomorrow. I think we've been married 21 years. I think that might be just about okay. Oh, that's another one, is it? No, I shut it. I shouldn't shut it. Shouldn't shut that one. Whoopsie. Right, so I've zoomed in. I've got a number 6 Pearl Art Master, which seems to be working quite well for the moment. It's quite a fat brush, but then it twists to a lovely twisty point. So you can get to some nice detail. I'm using a baby wipe, but you do need to rinse your brush out quite well. So I don't want to be too wet because it's a colour book. It's not watercolour paper, so you just have to be a bit careful. But as you can see, oops, this colour melts like butter. They are wonderful pure watercolours, and if you want to use them on watercolour you can, because they are for artists. I'm just checking, going through. So the Derwent art bars are pure watercolour, and they are fantastic. So I watched lots of YouTube videos with artists using them, and again I say they just melt like butter. Now this paper is like the other paper I had in another book. It looks really good and it's thick, but it doesn't like water. It's just about behaving itself, but I'm just not getting that lovely soft movement with it, without it buckling. And yet on the Kirby Roseanne there's no trouble. So again, just going to play. So there's no trouble with the art bars, it's just the paper. I don't want to use too much water. It doesn't like any water, this, and the Kirby Roseanne just kind of takes all sorts. This one's going to be a little bit trickier. So as much as I love it, there's a bit of a kink on there. It's not going to take, if you can see, there's a bit of a buckle, so I don't like that, especially on that page. Give up, Alfie. So we've got to rethink, and I've got a plan. I think I'm going to use my gouache. I'm going to go back to the gouache because this is a wetter brush than I'm used to. So I'm going to play in some of these greens. I've got lots of greens here. So I'm going to play in my gouache. And I was playing earlier, and I have a palette there with some really nice greens and browns and fawns because I wanted some dull colours. So I'm going to have to play in this one here. Now you do have to wash your brush out. You do have to wash your brush out quite a lot. So just see if I can try this. And how I work with these is I work quite dry but watery. So if I go over the top, I'm actually melting. I'm melting the art bar. But I'm not using as much water. And it's giving me a nice effect actually. Because it just does not like, this particular paper obviously doesn't like. So the gouache sits on top, basically that's what's happening. Yeah, I like the gouache. It's just gonna, because some papers you can rub and some papers you can't. And this one is definitely a little bit pedantic, so I can just which is a shame because it's quite nice paper, but it's fine, I can live with that. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you're doing something and you know within the first few minutes your chosen water media is not going to work on that paper, and if you keep going you'll just wreck the entire page. So it's always a good idea, as much as you don't like to do it, to stop and just go back to something that you've just been playing with and you know. So either stay with the art bars and play with a different colour book, or you can. See, the art bars are just melting, but I wanted to manipulate them and you can't with this paper. Once this paper is damp you have to walk away, otherwise it will just disintegrate if you touch it more than a couple of times. And I like to manipulate the art bars into kind of a pale wash, so I do like that. It's moved a little bit because I've wet it twice, but that was me. So I found that actually when I'm watercolouring I can do it with the gouache, but I've got to work quite pale and quite dry. Not many colour books like, unless it's watercolour paper. Again, they're not designed for watercolour, they are designed for pencils, but I just want to use them for this. So I've got another colour on here, so I quite like this. And I've got more control in a little palette like this. So I'm just putting the tiniest amount of colour on here. And if I just keep my brush as dry as possible, just want to touch that white and then pick up a bit of green, and I'm going to give a highlight on there. And of course you can do that with gouache because it's opaque. Oh, thank you, Melody. Oh, hi, Kenny. Welcome to Bunny's Designs. Yep, I've decided, I mean, it's dry as a bone. I've just decided I didn't want to fight the paper. And sometimes you can think that paper's going to be so thick it's like card, but touch it with a damp brush and it really did not like it. Especially when I want to manipulate. So I have found that with gouache, you're sliding a colour over the top and you're leaving it. And I really like that effect. I have to say I do like that effect. So I'm trying to get some kind of unusual greens going here. And it's always a good idea to test them. Now that's a little bit thick, but again I'm only using the bottom half of the brush. If you can do that, your brush will last longer, your colours will be brighter, and you will have a healthier time colouring in if you can do that. And I say this brush, because of that pointed tip, is quite nice to use. So you want the least amount of water on there, and you're just using that tip. So I've actually fallen in love with gouache. As much as I love my art bars, I've fallen in love with the gouache. For kind of fantasy things, the art bars are more kind of reality, but definitely because they are designed for illustration and for fantasy and kind of Disney, very flat, I can't think of the word, cartoon colours, then that's what they lend themselves to. So it's perfect for a colour book if you can just control that water content. And I quite like the fact that you can control that. So thanks for joining me. Oopsie, sorry, I'm off camera. So I'm trying to change it very slightly. But you only need six or seven colours of gouache and mix your own colours. You know, one green, and I'm using a little bit of white, and I'm using a bit of the other green, or the blue. I think I'm using a bright blue, a bright green, to rearrange some of these colours. Working the consistency of a felt pen. It feels like you have a permanent felt pen in your hand. That's the consistency of the water. That's how runny it is. So it's not very runny at all. Just get a bit of colour on the end and then just test it to think, is that going to be the right colour? And if you get gouache too thick, it becomes opaque, and that is very kind of illustration. But I'm using it as a watercolour, so I'm using it just that bit thinner so you can see the lines through. And I kind of like that dark. Trying to keep that into there. if you vary it just a tiny bit, you get such a difference. And squeeze as much of that water, twist as much as water out as possible. But as I say, they're very Disney because in the nature they're designed to be completely flat colours, which is kind of very cartoony. And a tiny bit of that here. But you can't be too dry, because if you are too dry, you'll scratch your paintbrush against the page. And if you do that, you will go over the lines, because it will knock you over the lines whether you want to or not. So I'm trying to vary these colours as much as possible. So we're going from turquoises to kind of teals, emerald colours, for obvious reasons. So I'd not seen this colour before, and I think it was $2.99. It was a silly price, and of course it was the paper that got me going. And then when we got back and tried it, it's not as thick as it looks, or it's not as robust as it looks, shall we say. It's not what it should be, shall we say. It's so, and always test just to make sure you've got the right colour. But by just taking that tiny bit of colour off and changing the colour, it looks so much different. And again, quite kind of Disney, cartoony, non-realistic, which is what we want. Thank you, Samantha. That's just what we want. That's kind of a nice emerald colour. So I think I'm going to put... Sounds like a squeaky wheel, but it's actually the Elf Master. It does sound like a squeaky wheel, but it is Alfie with his ball. His new ball. He was very good yesterday. Oh, this is the big girl. Hello, big girl. This is the big girl. I don't know what the big girl wants. That's almost a pea green rather than emerald, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So I'm still playing about in this area, and I do have, give up pigs, I do have a little bit of yellow in there as well, so I keep kind of having a bit of a, but it's getting a bit thick now for me. This is how you would use it if it was acrylic, sorry, if it was gouache, but I want it a very, very soft wash, a very light wash. That's how I want it, so that I can just kind of just keep moving that into there. And manoeuvring that. So I think that should look quite nice. Yes, please. So I think put that in there. So I really enjoy playing with the paintbrush again. This seems to be quite handy, and you're just stroking the page, which of course is so easy to do. But you can do this with the art bars, but just not on this paper. Now there's no reason why you can't put colour on the art bar and then put it on here, but I wanted to play with hundreds of different colours and I didn't want to put my art bars on there. I'm a bit precious with them, so I'm going to keep those for my professional art, I think. I'm a little bit kind of precious with them, where the gouache, this is my daughter's cheapy gouache, which is fine for a colour book. So, and if you just touch a tiny bit of blue in there, put some water up that end. Again, try not to get too much on there. If you have a lot, you'll have to dab a bit off, because you really do not want a lot. You do not want a lot on your colour page because it will buckle. Oh, it's so funny, this. So funny, Alfie. Alfie is so funny. I couldn't decide if that was a blue-green or a green-blue, but I think it's just a greeny blue. Has anybody got any comments? Pop them in caps. The other thing with this is it's quite therapeutic. It's not stressful, so you're just kind of plodding along. And I've got a little bit of Prussian blue here. So by bobbing a bit of that in, it's going to give me a darker green. And again, it's gouache. If you make a mistake, you can go back over it a bit later when it's dried and put some darks in. But I like the fact there's quite a lot of different greens in there. Yeah, he's squeakity squeak squeak. It's his tennis ball he got yesterday because he was such a good boy. I'm going to do that balloon a different colour because I think that's the Victorian reds. In fact, I might just Google and find what colour that was, because we know that this is the Emerald City, but that's the balloon. So again, you can get these different facets. You can get these different facets. So and it's always good fun. So on this palette, there seems to be quite a lot. I'm just going to spray that a little bit on. Put a drop of water on it. I think it's probably better. That's the Prussian blue. And of course, that's now giving me a really dark, deep mix. Whoopsie! Somebody's fallen off the ladder. I have a lot of guilt when everybody's working and I'm sitting doing this. So that blue because that blue now, because that blue has soaked in, it's given me a really nice deeper blue. Now sometimes you want something very similar and sometimes you want a bit of a contrast. It's a very tiny little brush at the end. Is this? It's quite nice to use. I'm trying to keep all emerald greens, but keep veering off a smidgen. So I think I can put that's back to mineral in emerald green. So thanks guys for stopping by. So if we have a look on the other side, there's a little bit, but I'm trying not to touch it too much because it does not like, even though it's dry, it doesn't like it. But I like the gouache because it's designed to dry flat, and it's going to dry flat. So again, I like that. That's what I wanted. And I had forgotten just how yummy it can be. I really had forgotten how nice it could be. And then we want a very pale one there. So very, very, very damp, just barely damp brush is fine. Anything more on this page doesn't really like it, but I do love the patterns, I have to say. But there's always ways of working around things. So thanks for stopping by guys. I hope everybody's having a pleasant weekend. And I think I'll just put a bit of colour on that one. I've nearly finished my first bit. Is that a guilt-free workplace? That's good. That's what we want. That's what we want, guilt-free. Yep. So I like those colours. I like the colours. I think it's yellow and orange, so I think it's alternate yellow-orange squares. So that's what I quite fancy to do. Now, after a while, and there is not very much on there. I think I want it redder than that. Nope, I don't like that. I want it actually redder than that. I think it's a redder. And that's too pinky. So in that case, I have to make my own. So I've got that red, and I want to have the reddy orange. And then that's going to give me that's what I want. Kind of a Victorian kind of reddy colour. That's what I want. So we'll see if we can put that in there. And again, you need to use that point, because that point is what's going to keep you in your lines. Now you can go to a smaller brush if you want. I didn't, but I should have done probably. Oh, thank you, Claudia, thank you. Just want a tiny bit of that yellow there. And I like this yellow for the yellow brick road, so it's going to be stronger here, and then it should get paler and paler. And I'm hoping it's going to go the whole way. Oops, sorry, I'm hoping it's going to go the whole way. So again, remember this. I suppose we could go darker around here. And then darker backwards. Again, what I should have under here is a piece of paper to protect the next page. So that's what I should have had there. Oops. and it is quite well behaved. Got to be a bit careful with the water though, because it does not like too much water. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my daughter's hungry. Sorry about that. Yeah, she's got the Actifry on. And if we had the smelly vision, forgotten who it was that was talking about smelly vision on Dee Dee's show, then you would be smelling spring rolls crisping in the Actifry. So it's fairly quick this, and very easy. Don't waste any pigment, so that gets my vote every time. And we have some grass. I think that's going to be darker than that can be pale grass. I think we're going for a deeper green. Has anybody got any questions? Oh, thanks, Melody. Oh, good luck for tomorrow. Hugs and wishes. Thanks for stopping by. I like that deep. Again, that emerald green. I've got it back again, so that's quite nice. I've done the wrong one. I wanted to do that one emerald green. I want to do this one a darker green, then getting darker and darker and darker, I think. So I apologise for all the noise, but hubby and middle daughter are at the bottom of the stairs, just the other side of a door, and they are decorating. But I have decorated for 20 odd years. Well, all my life I've always decorated. And my other daughter is usually doing the Actifry, so between them everybody's been busy apart from me. I'm just being lazy. Just a second. So I'm just going to pan out and then I'll stop recording. So thanks for watching. Just bear with me 2 seconds. You see, it doesn't take long though. That's again, I love the fact that this gouache, watercolouring with gouache and anything